Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. Glad you're all here. You know what? Boy, there's nothing worse than a backseat driver. You know what I mean? Nothing worse than a backseat driver. Hey, Scott, hey, good to see you. Bruce, glad you're here. But I'm pumped. Bruce is here. Oh, you know what? These things are. I still didn't clean them. That's awful. Awful. I can't use my glasses. That just sucks. How is everyone this evening? This one is so I got after I did the show the other day on Matthew Perry. I got a bunch of people that reached out and said, "You and your Barry Gibb hair." There you go. People who reached out and said, "You should talk about famous people that we have lost due to the." Due to the opioid epidemic. And you know what? There are there are sadly too many people that we've lost. It has been absolutely tragic. And this one, I started looking through a bunch of them, trying to see which one I would lead with. Prince, to me, is one of the most heartbreaking of the people that we've lost. And at 300 and some odd people a day, the number of really fantastic human beings that we've lost who don't have any kind of fame, I think is probably worth mentioning. It's pretty sad just how many people we're losing on a daily basis in this country. The number of famous people is staggering. But the loss with Prince, the reason I think that this one is probably felt more severely than others. First of all, the guy was ridiculously talented. If you grew up when I did, and if you grew up in the 80s at all, this was a guy that just sort of dominated the 80s. I was looking through the history of just awards, and I swear to you, if I read every award that this cat ever got nominated for, it would be the entire show. It would take 60 minutes. I'm not joking. I was screwing around with Johnny earlier. I'm like, you got to hear this. And I just started rattling off. If you just rattled off the ones that he has won, it takes a ridiculous amount of time. But if you start doing the ones that he was nominated for, MTV alone, I think there was about 600,000 or 700,000. Might be a slight exaggeration. It was ludicrous. It really was. But just in the big ones, he won 7 Grammys, right? Nominated for a grip, but won 7 of them. American Music Awards, 6 of them. Again, nominated for a ridiculous number of them. He won 2 Oscars. So he won for Purple Rain. He won for Best Score and Best Movie or something along those lines. But he won 2 Oscars for Purple Rain. 4 MTV Awards, and nominated for a gazillion, 4 BET Awards, 3 Billboard Awards, and I honestly could just keep doing this all night. It is astounding how much this dude did, and we lost him around my age, a little older than I am right now. Here we go. Andrew says, Purple Rain, one of the best songs with meaning I've ever heard. You know what? It's a good one. Lori T says, I love Prince. I heard Eric Clapton said Prince was the best guitar player. Well, Johnny Scoville had pretty high praise for Prince's ability to play the guitar. It's something that my brother talks about often, that Prince was wildly underrated for just how good he is on the guitar, or was, I should say, on the guitar. But born June 7th, 1958, again, taken really way too young. There was a lot of talk on TMZ about the time that Prince's overdose happened, concerning a plane trip that got diverted. And at the time, the story to the papers was that he had a really vicious case of the flu, and that he may have been dehydrated, so they diverted the aircraft. This was not the case at all. The case was that he was unresponsive from taking too many pills. 76 says, I was in the hospital for a week when he passed. You know what? It was 2016 when we lost him. It was 7 days, I think, or 6 days after that that diverted flight. Look at that cat. About 6 days after the flight was diverted. Sadly, Prince was found unresponsive in his Paisley Park mansion, just complex, huge place that he had near Minneapolis. And sadly, when they did when they started to research this case and they started going through his house and picking up the unbelievable amount of prescriptions that this guy had, he was taking a lot of medication. And he was mixing medications, which is a pretty bad idea. Kind of amazing that doctors were writing him scripts for benzos and for pain medication. Really a horrendous combination. If you're hearing the lifeboat for the first time, do not mix respiratory depressants, things that slow down your respirations and make you so mellow that you can just stop breathing and not care. And that's literally what happens in these drug overdoses. It's not a matter of your heart stopping and all of that stuff. It's a matter that you stop breathing and you're such at peace that when that happens, you're not feeling it. They say it is a very peaceful way to go. I've brought back a lot of people, and they're very angry about being brought back. He was epileptic. Miss Dragon says, I want to say he was epileptic too. He absolutely was. Got picked on pretty heavily for it apparently as a kid, and caught some grief for his height. He was 5'2". And his parents divorced when he was young, and he sort of shuffled back and forth between both parents. And I think, he talked a lot later on in life about his childhood really shaping who he became as an artist. But holy hell, he was fantastic as an artist. He is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on both sides of the pond, by the way, and very deservedly so. It was one of those deaths that I really felt a kick in the stomach. And it was one of those deaths that, because of where I was, I think I felt it more acutely. That was during the time that I was incarcerated, and we were losing stars one right after the other, and we were losing them to overdoses. And what's kind of brutal is when they went through the house and they started picking up all the pill bottles and looking at stuff, there were a lot of what you would call a generic Loratab, right? These were, it's just hydrocodone, but it is, for all intents and purposes, it's just a Loratab. And it has acetaminophen to the tune of about 325 milligrams. And the drug itself is in the 10 milligrams. So it's the strongest of that particular, that's usually the highest that you get in that is the 10s. But it is not a particularly strong opiate by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's the bottom of the food chain for people who are really, really strung out on dope. Those things are almost worthless. We were talking right before we went live. There's Russ. Look at that. Out of prison. Russ told me to tell everybody tonight to say hello because he was in the Big Red Button prison, but apparently he's been sprung. Bach Buddy says, I was confused by his death. He preached drug-free in his early days, and I thought he held some views when he passed. He did. And this is super important. I want everybody to get this, because this death was, he had no idea what he was taking. So these pills that say Watson 853 on them, and there's a bunch of people who are going to go, oh my God, I've taken 1 million of those, because they're one of the most ubiquitous pills in the world, or used to be. Prior to all the really heavy stuff coming out. But if you get your teeth out at the dentist or something, this is one of those medications you're going to get. It is not super, not super strong, but it's definitely a drug. Yeah, the thing with Prince is this: he was getting prescriptions for these, And, if you, no matter what you do, if you live on the road and you perform, I don't care what you have to do. Honestly, it matters not. But if you spend like 6 or 7 hours on an airplane, whether you're in first class or whether you're in your own plane, you spend 6 or 7 hours jacked in half, and then get off of that and walk into something and go on stage and have to, put on a show for an hour or two. It gets pretty rugged. And I think a lot of times just sort of the rash of doing that for the longest period of time, and then an injury, you fall down, you hurt yourself, you do whatever, and you end up at a doctor. I don't think he was really far along in the progression. This was a pretty famous cat. I think that I was shocked when I saw what this guy was taking. Right? I mean, I really expected to see perk 30s and really heavy, heavy opioids, Oxycontins and things like that. And what he had was really, like I said, the bottom of the food chain. And if you saw the pictures of the bottles, they went through and photographed everything. The number of pills he was getting scripts for were like 15. Right? These were not. You can get these things in bottles of 50. I used to all the time. Doctors didn't have a problem writing prescriptions for big numbers of these because you could take 3 or 4 of them at a time. So, over the course of a month, you could go through a lot of them. But the prescription bottles for about 15. So he was going somewhere else to buy the same pills. And what happened is he bought Watsons on the street and brought them home and had a stash of them in a different bottle that did not come from a pharmacy. They came from the street. And whoever put those pills together killed him. I mean, plain and simple. And you know what? Maybe he was on his way to becoming a drug addict. Maybe he didn't consider this the same way that so very often people think, I'm in pain. I go to the doctor gives me pills for pain. I'm not a drug addict, right? I'm taking pills because I'm in pain. That is a mindset that for so many people, it really, there's a disconnect that it's heart-wrenching because the guy had absolutely no idea he was taking fentanyl, and this was a rock star. This was a guy that spent a long time in rock and roll. If he had known there was fentanyl in those pills, he would have been treating them differently. Fent's got a really vicious reputation for a reason. When you hear them say things like, hold on 1 second, people.
Fent does have a brutal reputation.
Yeah, I think there's probably something to that. Quiet Girl says Prince was in need of a hip replacement because of the heels he wore. He was in incredible physical pain, and he refused the surgery because he didn't want to kill his presence on stage. And yep, I've read that a couple of times today, and I think that there's probably something to it. The sadly, if that's the case, then he really should have been on fentanyl. Right, he should have been on a really heavy-duty opiate, and at a smaller dose. Put out to him over a much longer period of time. To treat that kind of long-term pain, because what he was taking that's like throwing cotton balls, at something. It's perfect for what it's made for, but that's not what it's made for, not by any stretch of the imagination. And that got him taking more and more and more and more. And then you start buying them on the street. And what he got, I mean, they found pills that had more than 2 milligrams of fentanyl in them in his house. They're still trying to find out who pressed those things because whoever did killed them. And one of the saddest parts of the story is that literally on the day that they're going to find that. To end up finding his body, there was somebody that had flown out there whose father is pretty famous in the world of getting famous people sober, and he had sent his son out there to Paisley Park to go see Prince, and it was a day late, and he had done a show at Paisley Park, the last show he did, and he said, you know what, you don't need to pray for me yet. It was one of the last things he said to the audience was that. Yeah, it's a really good point, Seven. It's a really, really good point. That's the last thing he said to his audience. Seven says he was not addicted, he was dependent, and there is a very big difference. There's a huge difference. There really is. If you have to treat a chronic condition for the rest of your life, you're going to end up dependent. If you're taking it the way that they're telling you to take it, I don't consider you addicted. I really don't. If you have to treat pain, you have to treat pain. And I have absolutely nothing but love for anybody that has to treat pain. It's horrible, right? It really is. It's horrible. And it's, for so many people, it's lifelong. It's something that you have to wrestle with. And it's, it's horrific. It really is. And my hat's off to anybody that finds another way, and I absolutely have nothing against anybody that doesn't. If the way that you end up treating your chronic pain is through opiates, I say get a good doctor, right? And follow the instructions. Do what you're supposed to do, right? It's, I don't have that in me. I would really be in trouble. If I have to treat pain long-term, I'm hosed, because that is something I do not have the ability to control. I just don't. I wish that were not the case, but that is my Achilles heel. In life, that has been my Achilles heel. I have absolutely no ability to say no after I say yes to the first one. You know what, Lori, this is my humble opinion. I don't think he got drugs off of somebody random. I think that. I don't think that that's the case. I think chances are it was somebody that he knew, and this was early in the game in terms of the counterfeit pill thing. We know so much more about it now than we did then. But the amount of money that you can make knocking off a pill like that, people were paying $10 a pill for things like that. And I'm sure rock stars are paying more than that. But even at $10 a pill, that's just about pure profit. I mean, it does not take a tremendous amount of fentanyl to make a very large batch of fake pills. And that sadly was the business model. And it's impossible to regulate. We've talked about this so many times on the Lifeboat, but you have to, it's a very difficult thing if you're mixing up a batch of drugs, cutting it, right? Because you can't put out pure fentanyl. It will kill, the people that come in contact with it, right? Even the people selling it. So that you got to cut it into a big pile of something else. And the problem is hot spots, right? If you take a gram and you try to take that gram and throw it into, say, 25 grams, right? There's a really good chance there's going to be huge amounts of that has absolutely no fentanyl in it. That's just going to be cut. And there are going to be places that have way too much fentanyl in it, hot spots. And it's not a drug that likes to break down. It's difficult to keep that kind of stuff in what they call suspension so that you're getting an equal amount in everything. And that's dangerous as hell when you start pressing stuff into pills, right? If more than 2 milligrams end up in one of those pills, then it's all over. We did a show where we talked about a woman who lost a son to a Xanax. Good kid, didn't have a drug issue, never had, came home and told mom, I got a friend gave me something that said it's going to help me with sleep. And it was a Xanax bar. And the kid broke up off what amounted to be about a quarter of it and ended up with like 3.5 milligrams of fentanyl in his system. And it was, instant. That gets in there and it's over. You know what? Here's the other thing. She makes a good point. She says it's scary to buy drugs because you don't know what it is and people are greedy. People also, this is a situation that I think it's, it's coming across the border pilled up, right? So it's just, if it doesn't come from a pharmacy in a bottle that has your name on it, you can't take it. You can't, right? He once, great reference. He said he once beat Charlie Murphy in basketball and then he served them pancakes. pancakes. They were playing Skins and Blouses, I believe. Great sketch. If you've never seen that one, man, that is the top of the food chain for comedy. Name that show. Chappelle. The Chappelle Show did a great skit on Prince. He is I don't know. He is a star that we didn't really see in the light in any way. You know what I mean? Philip Seymour Hoffman was really open and honest about his struggles, and Matthew Perry was really, really open and honest about his struggles. And I think that when we lose those people, it's different than when you lose somebody like Prince, who was very vocal about, I'm not a guy that does drugs. I'm not a guy that's a partier. It's not what I do. It's about the music. It's about when somebody like that overdoses, it's a slap in the face. But this is one of the things that I scream about on the lifeboat constantly, right? It's not as painful. And I'm sorry, it's just a fact. And I'm a drug addict. But when you lose somebody that's a drug addict, you know, it's different than when you lose somebody that isn't. Right? Maybe they're dependent, but you know, this dude wasn't throwing stuff in a spoon. You know, this was a guy in an awful lot of pain. And if there was pain management that was treating him correctly, he wouldn't have been buying stuff on the street. And it all goes back to the knee-jerk reactions that we do all the time in this country. And you know, when the crisis was kicking and it first started, they made it impossible for doctors to write prescriptions for strong pain medication. And they also made it so that doctors were writing really, really small amounts. So for all intents and purposes, they were forcing people onto the street. You know, that was an incredibly brutal time on people in pain and on people with drug problems. The world changed brutally in a very short fashion. And the reason that these pills were on the market was because of what the government did, right? When you take all of these people who are in pain management across the entire United States and get the doctors so damn frightened, right? These doctors are so tripped out that if they write a script for too many pills, or if somebody comes back for one more prescription, am I going to end up in prison? Because trust and believe, everybody knew a pain management doctor that wrote too many scripts and ended up going to prison, right? I've told the story before. I sat on Con Air and I had one sitting right next to me. And as soon as we sat down, the guy to my left, who I knew because we were traveling together, he said to me, "What do you think that dude's in for?" Because the guy did not look the part, right, of a convict at all. And I said, "Scripts, I guarantee it." You know, this was a guy that was cranking out scripts in a pill mill, and you know, these people then die and they get life. That's reality. And I promise you, they're trying to hunt down whoever pressed the pills or the last person to touch him, because those pills murdered him. No two ways about it. It's if you believe you're taking X and you're given something else, man, that's dirty. It really is. It's dirty. It's like Mickey and somebody, except, you know, instead of taking advantage of them, they killed them. But it's about the sleaziest crap in the entire world. 7th, my favorite person, says Valerie. 7th, do you hear this? Hey, Jennifer Bucks. It's so the fact that this one came so out of left field, I think stung a lot of people. And if I'm not mistaken, it was on the heels of somebody else. He was sandwiched between two other people. Glenn Fry was one, and the other was, Tom Petty. I believe somebody help me on this one. Was that not a 1, 2, 3? Peace Lady has a question, and she says, "Would a dirty doctor have nothing coming in prison?" I'll tell you what, they wouldn't care. To be really honest with you, they would not care. As far as convicts are concerned, that's a guy that had a hustle that got out of control. You know, that's how that would be viewed. Drug dealers, I don't care who you're selling to or what you're doing, you're getting a pass in prison. It's just considered an honorable crime for whatever reason. It is absolutely not a problem in any prison that I've ever been That's not something anybody cares about. If you steal things, you kill people. Believe it or not, all of those are considered honorable crimes. There's just a very small number of crimes that are not honorable, and they're pretty common sense-ish, really. If you're hurting old people, or if you're hurting children, if you're doing something that's just plain wrong, those are the ones that have problems. But any other crime, no, they'd be fine in there. Petty was a tough one. Yeah, you know what? That was. But once again, this starts coming back again and again to it. You feel like that what's happening on the street kind of happened in a vacuum, right? The cartels, the bad cartels, decided that they were going to get this really unique way of putting dope onto the street, and that's just simply not the case. What happened is the federal government shut down doctors' abilities to treat patients who were actually in pain. And you know what? Let's say they weren't actually in pain. By that time, they're addicted, and it doesn't much matter at that point, right? They need these pills. And these aren't people that are going to be really comfortable, heading down to 4th Street or whatever 4th Street is where you live, and, trying to go and cop tar on the corner, right? These are people who would never dream of doing heroin. That's absolutely just beyond the scope of being able to wrap your brain around. And I know this because I was that guy. There's no way in hell I ever would have done heroin, right? There's no way I would have done heroin. Pills were completely different, right? I got pills from doctors, and then I got slick and found ways to get pills from pharmacists, and I found other ways to get pills, but they were pills, right? And these were the same pills that doctors had been writing me prescriptions for 60 days, 90 days earlier. Made perfect sense to me. In my head, I did not have a drug problem like other people did. I knew I had issues. I was buying pills on the street. I knew I had a problem, and I was buying big fat bags of them, but it was different. And this will sound stupid as hell, but it's the truth. I smoked heroin. People told me it was that it was opium. That was the line of BS that went around for a while, and that was how I tried it. And I probably smoked it for 3 or 4 weeks under the assumption that it was opium. But I knew I was addicted to pain medication anyway, so this wasn't such a bad thing, right? To me, it wasn't anyway. And right around the time somebody said to me, I was sniffing it, and somebody said to me, "You know what that is, right?" And I went, "Oh crap!" As soon as they said it, I was like, "Yep, I do." By then, it was too late. For me, it was. For me, it was absolutely too late. The issue with Petty is that he truly seemed like a humble man. You know what? I'll be honest with you. Of the 3 that I just mentioned, I think all of them were just such unique personalities, and such. None of them, they all seemed like a tremendous loss. We lost all 3 of those way too early. But Prince was prolific as hell. I think if that dude had time, I think we would have seen a lot more really cool stuff out of him. And it's just a tragedy, because without the government shutting down the doctors' abilities to get people the medication they need, the cartels don't then decide that pill pressing stuff into pills is the way to go. Number one, it's from a business standpoint, it makes sense right up until the time you start killing everybody, but when you're just delivering a product that way, it makes a ton of sense, because all of these people that were going to the street that needed drugs, their first option was pills. If they could get pills, that's what they were looking for. And they go to dealers and say, "Hey man, can you get pills?" Those people go to their suppliers and say, "Hey man, you know where to get pills?" Everyone's asking for pills. I mean, this doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, right? Eventually that gets back to the people who are selling heroin, and they say to them, "You know what? Yeah, I mean, if heroin's moving, if I had pills, I swear to God, I could be selling 10 times as many. Everybody and their brother wants them." Right? And then the next thing you know, here we are. It's my Dilaudid has been out for 10 days. No pharmacy within 20 miles has them. Good God in heaven. I keep hearing this every single day. You know what, Donna? I'm going to do a show on this one. I promise. I'm going to do a show on this one, because you're right. And that story is so beyond belief. truthfully, that story is so beyond belief that it needs to have a yes. Princess Purple Rain was a beautiful song. Absolutely need to do an entire show on Anna Nicole Smith, and I promise you I will, because hers is just. You know what, Jay? Anybody that works a Charlie Sheen's Tiger Blood into any show should get honorable mention. That was such an unbelievable period of time, wasn't it? I mean, there are people you look at. You know, we lose Prince, and you look at Charlie Sheen, and I don't want to lose Charlie Sheen. I think the guy's a national treasure. However, you look at him and you think that's a guy you might figure you're going to hear one morning isn't with us anymore, right? Like that one wouldn't be a shocker. You know, I can think of 25 or 30 rock bands where if they named anybody from the band that was gone, you'd be like, yeah, I can see that. Prince was not that musician, and I hope that time will sort of history will write that correctly. You know what I mean? The guy wasn't really your run of the mill drug addict. I mean, as I started to go and look into this one, you know, just as a guy that did a ton of dope. I mean, when they said what was on the pill, you know what I mean? I was like, Watson 853s. Like, this is not, you know, this is hydrocodone 10s. You know, I've seen people eat 25 or 30 of those at a time. You know, I don't think he was very far along in his, Keith Richards. Holy hell. How did I honestly not say Keith Richards when I brought that up? What's that?
Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead lived his entire life, died of natural causes.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? Lemmy from Motorhead. Yeah, what a blow to clean living, right? 2 packs a day until the last day.
2 packs a day, a fifth of Jack Daniels, and a mountain of speed every single day.
He was a big fan of anything that made his heart go faster. You realize that if you were to figure out the number of beats that Lemmy Kilmister's heart did over the course of the time that he was on this planet,
10 lifetimes. I
would be willing to bet that he gets an award for the most number of heartbeats. There aren't too many people that beat that one, unless you were like a marathon runner permanently or something.
They say he died of natural causes. I was like, wait, what? Really?
You know what? Here you go. Look at this. Lubin says, hold on a second. I really wish that we'd leave that up there. Okay. Lubin says, the pain management doctor I had for 6 years walked out of his practice in 2019. So I have been out of luck quite a bit since then. My primary doctor helps a bit. Well, you're in luck if your primary doctor is helping. They are changing the laws a little bit. Once again, it's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. We don't ever sit down as a country and think things through and do things logically. We don't. It's just that simple. The pendulum always swings so freaking far in the opposite direction, right? That we're going to end up in a point, in my humble opinion, we're going to end up at a point where we throw our hands up and say that we tap out and we start legalizing. I think it's probably in our future. I really do. Jerry Garcia's death. And again, look, I wasn't shocked that Jerry was dead. You know what I mean? Like, Jerry lived a pretty rugged life, and he was in and out of rehab at the end of his life. He would go on these benders with Steve Winwood and a couple other friends where they would just go out and get wrecked and then end up at a rehab for 2 or 3 days to spin dry, and then they would go out and do it again. This is hard. Last December, a friend I'd recently met died at 41, was into white uppers and alcohol. Then July this year, an acquaintance died after multiple hospitalizations for blood clots from meth at 56. I'll tell you what, I'm sorry to hear that. May the force be with you. I really am. I am so sorry to hear that. You know what? That's worthy of an announcement. May the force. I'm really sorry to hear that. It's sadly the norm. It really is. I lived in Nevada, and I went when I went to prison the last time. There was a youngster that, to testified against me. And you know what? Honestly, I don't care. I really don't. I think that he wanted to get out of jail because he was dope sick. But this kid destroyed himself shooting dope. And it wasn't the way that other people do. He had diabetes and like blood clots and things like this. And he just continued to get put in the hospital. And he was like 5 doors down from me when I had my my stroke. They were walking me down the hall. I saw the name on the door. And I said to the woman, I know that guy. Is there any chance of going in there? I mean, I'm in a chair. He's in a bed. It wasn't like it was going to be a fist fight anyway. But she wheeled me in, and I saw him one other time after that. But he took himself off the planet like that. Just one hospital visit after another, and he could not stop shooting dope. Couldn't stop taking pills, and it just killed him. Yeah, Janis Joplin was rugged. That was before my time, but I loved it. We have an announcement. Yeah, we got an announcement. So it's actually a 2-piece. This is a 2-piece announcement. First, Quiet Girl says, I would like to make an announcement. Tommy, it's been 4.5 years. And tomorrow I get my teeth back. Sorry, off topic, but this is a Christmas Eve for me. More importantly, we're going to be having you back on, right? I did a great interview with Quiet Girl. She's a fantastic interview. One of the easiest people I have ever interviewed, truthfully. Just a joy. But we've been wanting to tell, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. But we would really like to do it with the, what do they call them? The Kool-Aid, the Hey Kool-Aid grill. You know, the Hey Kool-Aid. That's what they call them behind the wall. The guys that get the new teeth, the Hey Kool-Aid grill. I'll tell you another one that I knew was coming, and it still was painful as hell, was Amy Winehouse.
I swear it's bad. I was just thinking.
You know why Amy Winehouse, I think, to me, was one of the most painful of all of the star deaths. I think that I don't know. Maybe it was the inevitability of it.
She was a female Bon Scott.
Yeah, she was. You know what? She was just like Janis Joplin too. You know, Lisa Presley. Yeah. May the force be with you, says Lisa Presley. Yeah. Yeah, if Spock was the Surgeon General, we would finally deal with this. That would be lovely. Because I'll tell you what, a lot of it literally is just logic, right? A lot of it just comes down to logic. And if you see the numbers of people overdosing on dope going through the roof, there really can only be a couple of reasons why, right? Like, this is not rocket science. It really isn't. We know from the statistics that the vast majority of people who get strung out these days start on pills. It didn't used to be that way, but it is like 100, times more now than it's ever been. The people who are addicted now got addicted on pills. So they get addicted by a big pharma system that cuts them off and sends them to the drug dealers. Right? That's friggin' broken. Right? That's heinously broken. And I know people say, that it's personal responsibility and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? There's some truth to all that. No question. There is truth to all of that. And regardless, I had a pain specialist in Salt Lake City, Utah, that was writing me scripts for 12 OxyContin 80s a day. You think that that's anywhere near a legitimate amount of dope to give to anybody for any reason? Like, looking back on it, and this may sound ignorant as hell, right? It is ignorant as hell, but I really had absolutely no idea how much it was. Like, it didn't matter to me at all, right? It was, by that point, I was really, really strung out and was just out of control. But I'm with Sandy Bowers on this one. But that's an example of what a pain specialist was doing. C. Lori T says that's nuts. It is, right? But what happened was when OxyContin rolled out and the Sacklers did their bombardment campaign of dropping just ungodly amounts of money to grease the skids and make sure that every doctor everywhere was writing fat prescriptions of OxyContin under the delusion that less than 4% of people who took that were ever going to get addicted to it.
How could they even say that?
Because of a BS study that didn't exist, that they cited in all of their literature. And they paid fines for it, right? They paid fines for it. And I can't tell you how many people I know who got addicted to that crap, whose lives are in shambles today. And they're the lucky ones because the vast majority of people I know are dead. Right? Everybody. He and I were talking the other day and going through the list of people that we when we were in the life in our previous state that we knew, and there's none of them. I'm not kidding you, Jack. Right? There's nobody else that's alive. Everybody is gone, and it's Martha Simmons says, I had a busy pill mill right behind my house in Florida. It was awful. I can't imagine how bad it had to be to have a, good God in heaven. If all right, so to give you an idea, because if you've only seen it on TV, right? Pamela, I'm with you 100%. If you've only seen pill mills on television, then there is absolutely no way whatsoever to do justice, right? But what happened is this. Make no mistake. What happened is a lot of bad people greased the palms of a lot of bad people. And because of it, they were pushing unbelievable. Hello, Steve. Be safe. They were pushing this dope on everybody. I don't care what you went into a hospital for. You got to understand, if you're a doctor of any kind, right? And you get all of this literature that says, hey, we finally have found the Holy Grail. Now, no more pain and 4% chance of addiction, right? Where can you go wrong? So now you go in and you skinned your knee. Why would I write you a prescription for something like a Loratab, right? A hydrocodone or a Percocet or something when this beautiful OxyContin stuff has no chance whatsoever of getting you addicted? This is what I ought to be writing prescriptions for. And by the way, they're giving away vacations. You know, we're going to teach you how great the drug is in the Bahamas. They were writing commissions to guys that were pushing the most OxyContin prescriptions to the most doctors. It became so sick, it's unbelievable. But when you went into a pill mill, you don't see a doctor. See a doctor, right? I went into a pill mill and I saw a woman at a little behind a piece of glass. It was like a receptionist. And she took a little bit of information and I walked inside and there was a guy sitting at a desk and said, what exactly is it that you're looking for? And I said, OxyContin. And he goes, I can give you 160 of them, right? That's the most I can legally write for. And then he just went down the list and he's like, is there anything else you want? And I was like, Xanax. Okay. I can write you a prescription for, and look at like doing what I do now and looking back on it. He gave me a cocktail that would kill you in the parking lot. If you took what he wrote for me, the way he wrote it, it would have killed you in the parking lot. I promise you. They just didn't care. And the new mindset for the entire medical community was no one should have to deal with pain for any reason. Honestly, there was a shift in the mindset of the entire medical community that no more. Pain is a thing that we can eliminate, and we can do it with a very small chance of addiction. There's nothing we got to worry about. And those dirty SOBs, right? Sackler in particular, when they came to him and said that the numbers were closer to like 23 or 24% of people who were taking it were getting addicted, not 4%. His response was, on the record, honestly, I thought it would be higher. We're talking about classy people, right? But they were donating huge money to the Guggenheim, and they were donating huge money to anybody else. You know, now they won't even take it. No one will take their money. The world realizes that they're pieces of crap. In fact, they went into the Guggenheim and they threw out all of these death cards that they were throwing out with and syringes and things like that. It got really ugly, really, really ugly. But nobody wants their money. The Sackler family has finally been outed for what they are. And the crazy thing is that fortune goes so far and wide out past the original family. It's incredible. The massive amounts of money. World's biggest drug dealers, right? Never been bigger drug dealers than the Sacklers. The cartels should be so lucky, right? Honestly, for one family, holy hell. And they did it for the first time with Valium. First drug ever advertised. Arthur Sackler put drug advertising on the market. There's only 2 countries in the world that do it. How much money do you think they got to keep pouring into Congress to keep that law? For real. How much cash does Big Pharma have to just bring up to Capitol Hill in wheelbarrows to keep that one alive? Why in hell can you run an ad for a drug that you can't buy? Right? You can't walk into a pharmacy and say, I would like some Cialis, right? But I can run you an ad for it. Or, the old days, I've done shows on this. In the old days, people walked into their doctor and said, this is the strangest thing, but when I lay down at night, I'm having a really difficult time sleeping. And one leg just seems to, like, I can't stop it from going. And it drives my partner crazy. And it's a bad thing. Then the doctor would diagnose you. Now someone walks in and says, I want Lyrica. I got Restless Leg Syndrome. I watched 4 commercials during the Super Bowl. By the way, there's 2 other drugs I need while I'm here, right? Because they were also big commercials during the Super Bowl. And it's changed us dramatically. If you want some laughs, Google how many prescriptions the average person took, the average adult took in 1976 compared to how many prescriptions the average adult takes today. Are you telling me that we've gotten that much sicker? No, but we've begun to treat the symptoms of everything. And you know what? Sometimes, I'm in a little pain. This morning was bad. I had a really bad night last night with my back, but I don't take pain meds. I can't. It's not an option. I still have a really excellent quality of life, but you can live an excellent quality of life and live with some pain, right? But the pendulum swung so far because, again, of how much money the Sacklers dumped in, and we got this nobody should ever have to live with pain. Give them all the OxyContin they want. Then the real numbers started coming out, right? And then people are up on Capitol Hill testifying about the fact that they're eating 25 of these things a day, and people are talking about crushing them and snorting them, and right? Great concept. Time released over the course of a whole day. Trouble is, it was real easy to get all that dope in one shot. And that's what happened. And it became an epidemic fast. So what'd they do? No more, right? No more. And the Sacklers, being as slick as they are, they went up to Capitol Hill to testify as well. And you know what they said? They said, you're right. This OxyContin's awful. It needs to be completely reformulated. It's dangerous as hell. We can't put this out. They almost look like human beings, right? But then when you look at it through the history of time, right, through the lens of history, what you find is they did that because they were right at the cusp of having to go generic for OxyContin, allowing anybody to make it, right? OxyContin would then be the generic that you could get anywhere. But they said this stuff's not safe. So they got 5 more years of being the only people that could manufacture it. And they did change it. They made it impossible to smoke, right? They made it impossible to shoot, or damn difficult to do either. And they made it so that the only way you're really going to take it is to take it orally, right? Nothing else is going to work. And then, of course, they roll out the Perk 30, which has not been touched. So you can't get an OxyContin 80, but you can get a Percocet 30, which is just like the old days. You can smoke them, shoot them, snort them, whatever. And people are doing it. And the most counterfeit pill on the planet is the Perk 30. So people are buying these things thinking that, they're Percocet 30s. And you can smoke a Perk 30 and it's not going to kill you. You can smoke a duffel bag full of them. But you smoke, a little bit of fentanyl could take you off the planet. Doesn't take much. And it is unusual in the opioid world that there's something you smoke that's that, but it's deadly as hell. It really is. Valerie, it is well placed. Valerie says, I have such anger towards the medical establishment. It's difficult for me to go through things. I need to. I'm scared. You know what? Hello, T Prada. Good to see you. If you're not angry at the medical community, I don't know where you've been, right? it's difficult as hell to not be angry at the medical community for a lot of reasons. But sadly, the medical community is just part of this chain that starts with the federal government and goes all the way down. And it doesn't matter who's in office. Don't get mad at me. It's how long has this been going on? You talk about the biggest lobbyists in the world. You talk about people literally, I'm not exaggerating at all, right? They're dropping off wheelbarrows full of $100 bills. They're maybe doing it electrically, right? Or electronically rather. They're just transferring funds. They're opening political action committees. You can't donate more than $4,000 to somebody running for, depending on the office, $2,000, $800. It's a personal donation. You can't make more than that. You can start a political action committee for them and dump ungodly amounts of money into those. And they buy both sides. Nobody's clean. Nobody is clean. What do we got here? 10 Norcos a day. Oxy moved to heroin, 80 a pill, started stealing, did 4 months. Out with the kid is what I heard. Well, thank God. Good for her. I mean, if she's out, and I hope she's doing well. Yeah, Norcos, almost the exact same pill as the 853. We're talking about the same thing for all intents and purposes, right? It's about this certainly the same level. Yeah, I did. Boy, did I do a lot of those too. It was so yeah, it's all the same. And it really is all the same. But sadly, we're again talking about the most counterfeit drugs anywhere in the world. There are 58 different. They have busted 58 different pills that they have found being manufactured with fentanyl in them. Yeah, there's something to that, Christy. It's a great quote. Scariest words in the English language. I'm here to help them from the government. It's the reason that, look, I started out the most virulent, you gotta tighten up the ship on this, on the drug war. And, now that I've spent a couple of years in it, really in it, talking to people every single day who are addicted to drugs, we lost the war on drugs. It's over. You know what? May the force be with you. Right? What conscience has a doctor prescribing a kid Norco for their entire adult life? It's a great question. But again, it's such a crazy of all of the drugs in the world, right? Of all the drugs in the world that people get addicted to, there's nobody looking at a guy snorting coke going, wow, he's got really lousy energy. The guy really does need a little bit of blow. You know what I mean? It's sad that he's got to be on it, but he needs a little bit of blow. Right? You don't see this with any other drug, really. I mean, yeah, there are people who have, narcolepsy and end up taking amphetamines or whatever, or use amphetamines for other reason. But honestly, there are people that need pain medication, right? Legit as hell need pain medication, and that clouds the entire thing, right? Because the doctor's job is to look at somebody and go, as far as I'm concerned, the last time I put a tie on, doctors killed him. They did. Now, maybe their hands were tied by the government and all kinds of other things with regulations. And they just did it again, where they're going to loosen up on all of the laws concerning doctors writing prescriptions. It's gonna swing the opposite direction just as far. Hold on. Isn't she perfect? I have the greatest cat in the world. Franklin. Good to see you, Franklin. Franklin MC says, Tommy, it's pretty hard when the CIA is the biggest drug pusher on the planet. No way I argue that. I did a show on this. And you know what? They've pushed a lot of dope. And you know what? It's a bummer to hear that. It's a bummer to read that. It's a bummer to go down that rabbit hole. Because I'm telling you, I am a flag-waving patriot. I really am. But you know what? There's just no way to argue it. That 3-letter organization has moved more dope than anybody on planet Earth, and I don't think anyone will ever catch up because they ain't about to get out of business. They're really not. if you go over a certain dollar amount, and at one point it was like $50 million, which in Washington, D.C. is like dropping a quarter, right? But if you went over $50 million, you got to ask Congress and explain to them what you need the money for. And this is like the black ops stuff that those alphabet agencies like to do behind people's backs, right? So instead, wherever the conflict has to be, you grab all the dope while you're there, you bring it back to the US, you dump it on the streets, and you fund the, what did I hear yesterday? 38 different conflicts that are going on worldwide right now, right? Most of which we probably got some kind of a hand in. But it's sad but true. And look, I'm old, right? So are a lot of you. And you remember the crack wars? Remember how nasty that was in the 80s? This crack cocaine epidemic thing hit. And where were we? Right? Where was the alphabet agencies then? They were all in South America, right? So they're flying back kilos of blow. We're sending down guns, and the blow's getting turned into crack, put on the streets, sold. The money was used to help fund the Contras, right? This isn't even debatable anymore, right? This is just a stone cold fact. It's the Iran-Contra affair, right? This went down. So flash forward, and when's the next huge epidemic we have? Well, the next real big one's heroin. And where are we at that point? Well, we're over in Afghanistan, the largest producers of heroin on earth. And all of a sudden, we just have this boom explosion of heroin all over the streets. It's you can always tell where we happen to be putting all of our alphabet agencies, because whatever's popular on the streets, I promise you it'll be here. If they're a big hash town, they'll be hash. Right? It's just the way it is. So yeah, I agree with you. They move a lot of dope. They did it in Vietnam. You know, they're probably doing it in Korea. I'm sure they've been doing it as long as there's been dope. It's just a really easy way to make a whole lot of money. And they need a whole lot of money at all times because they play in the affairs of the entire world. Once again, can't hate me. I'm not yelling about either side, right? I'm yelling about both sides. Fentanyl is the most dangerous street drug right now. Yes and no. There are some bathtub opiates. Opiates come from a poppy. Opioids come from a laboratory. And there is some bathtub stuff on the street right now that are under the class of family of iso and phytonitazines. So nits, nasty stuff. It's considerably stronger than fentanyl. And last time I checked, it had been found being sold in 38 of our 50 states. So it's pretty damn serious. It's spreading, right? So, and now the nits are getting mixed with the xylazine, and we've got a sort of a new and an improved class of tranq that there's just not going to be much hope for. I mean, when you take fentanyl and compare it to heroin, if you overdose on heroin, I can bring you back. I promise you. If I'm in the room, I can save your life. And I don't need anything to do it. I can just slap the crap out of you. I can do sternum rubs. I can walk you around. I can throw cold water on you. I can play with ice cubes. There's all kinds of things I can do to save your life. And I'm not kidding you. I've never had somebody overdose in front of me that I didn't save. But with fentanyl, it's a completely different game, right? There's not going to be anything you can do. They're not coming back. You can't jumpstart a heart that's been shut down, right? That person's not breathing. It's not happening. That we're talking about such a flood of drugs. Stuff is dangerous, people. It's dangerous, it really is. This was an amazing human being and a talent that, like so many right now, died before its time. And the only shining spot of this story is it is a story, right? And it's a story that if this can happen to a dude like Prince, I promise you, if you're buying dope on the street, you got a real good chance of it happening to you, right? You would think. Carfentanil, says LVC. Yeah, carfentanil. This is a drug that you don't honestly catch on the street. I think it's really a myth. And I'm sorry, but carfentanil, if you take 1 grain of it, right? Carfentanil was invented to knock out elephants. All right, it's excellent. If you need to knock out a pachyderm, take down 4,000 pounds of pachyderm, it's an excellent drug. There's just no way to take a grain of that, which can kill you, and pulverize it into something that you can then cut. So if carfentanil is making it to the street, it's there to kill somebody. It's definitely not there to get somebody high. There's just no way to cut that stuff down enough where a human being can take it. Not even if that human being is Keith Richards or myself. It's not going to happen. Charlie. Glad you're here. You know what? That brings us to the top of the hour. Don't let the elevator take you down. Martha, that's probably a good one to go out on right there. Yeah. When you're talking to that shrink up there in Beverly Hills, Mr. Darby Doctor, everything will be all right. All right, people. Quiet Girl is going to tell us tomorrow if the equipment is fitting the way it's supposed to, so we can get her on here for an interview. Congratulations. Couldn't happen to a nicer girl. I mean that. Not only is Keith still kicking, but long after I'm gone and all of you are gone, Keith will still be kicking it. Only two things are going to survive the next war.
Cockroaches.
And Keith Richards. True story. The man is absolutely a machine. You just got to kind of tip your hat because, at his age, I hope I can walk, much less go on stage, party until 5 a.m., do it while the entire time smoking cigarettes like they're going out of style. And I don't know, do some smacking, hang out with women a third my age. That's what the guy does every single night. Right? I can't do that. I'm 50, 46. All right, everybody. That's a wrap. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. This is a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Or maybe, there we go. There you go.